Okay, so you sent us this material about the spectacle, Guy Debord. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Some excerpts.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, pretty thought-provoking stuff.
It is, yeah. It's one of those concepts, well, once you start seeing it,
Right.
it's kind of hard to unsee it.
Exactly. I mean, Debord's definition is pretty simple on the surface, but
Deceptively simple, I'd say.
yeah, yeah. He says it's a social relationship between people that is mediated by images.
Mm-hmm.
So for this deep dive, I think that's our jumping off point.
Absolutely. That's the core idea we really want to unpack. But, our aim here is to go beyond just defining it,
The
right?
source.
We want to see how this spectacle, as Debord calls it, really works in the world, according to him. And maybe even more importantly for you listening, we want to explore why this whole framework, why it might be so relevant to how you understand your own life, like life in the 21st century and all that.
Right, right. The sources you shared, they give us a pretty solid foundation in Debord's thinking, I think. And one thing that really jumped out at me, I mean, it's this idea that the spectacle, it's not just about, like, the constant media we're all bombarded with. It's deeper than that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Much deeper.
It's like it shapes how we see reality itself.
Exactly. It's not passive.
And we're going to get into this, but we'll look at the connections to consumer culture.
Huge. Yeah.
Even the way our political systems work.
All tied in.
So, yeah, let's dive in. This could get pretty interesting.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that definition, right? A social relationship between people that is mediated by images. I mean, where do we even start with that?
Well, I think the first thing to really emphasize is that Debord, he wasn't just talking about like a lot of pictures, right? It's not just that we have a lot of visual stuff around us. It's a change in how we relate to each other.
Oh, how we don't relate, maybe.
Exactly. There's a disconnect that happens.
So it's not even about owning a TV.
Right.
Or, being on your phone all the time.
It's bigger than that.
It's how those images, they kind of become the main way we experience, well, everything, even each other.
It becomes the filter.
Right. And, your sources really point out that this isn't some random thing that just happened. This is a worldview.
Yeah.
Right. And it's pushed by
capitalism, by the whole system we live in.
Modern capitalism. Yeah.
Exactly. And, Debord, he saw this spectacle. It's like an essential feature of these advanced capitalist societies. One key aspect, and your sources talk about this a lot, it's this idea of images over reality.
Okay, yeah. What's that all about?
Basically, it's this idea that we experience the world more and more through representations.
Representation.
Yeah, like through screens, advertisements, all the media we consume. And less through direct experience.
So, like, instead of really being in the moment...
We're busy documenting it, capturing it for later.
For Instagram or whatever.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like, think about going on vacation. How many people are actually present, really taking it all in? Or are they more focused on getting that perfect picture?
Oh, man. Yeah. So true. It's like the picture of the vacation becomes more important than the actual vacation itself.
Right. The image becomes more real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's strange when you think about it. And this leads us to another big idea from Debord, alienation.
Okay, alienation. Yeah. It's like feeling disconnected, right?
Exactly, feeling detached from your own life, from real experiences.
And it's like, instead of shaping the world or, really being a part of things...
We become passive, like just consumers of these, pre-packaged experiences, watching our lives on a screen instead of living them.
Wow, that's deep.
And, it gets worse. The spectacle doesn't just alienate us from real experience. It also creates a sense of false unity and control.
False unity, like how so?
Well, think about social media, right? This is really amplified in the digital age. There's this feeling of being connected to all these people. Like, we're all part of this global conversation. But Debord argues that, well, it's kind of a trick.
Yeah, it's funny, right? You can have like hundreds of online friends and still feel totally alone.
Right. That's the paradox. We're more connected than ever, but also more isolated.
And control, you said. How does that fit in?
Well, this illusion of connection, it can be a way of controlling us, too. Keeping our attention focused on this mediated world. It distracts us from, the real problems.
We're actually doing something about them.
Exactly. And then there's this idea, and this one's really mind-bending, the commodification of everything.
Everything.
Yeah, even stuff that you'd think couldn't be bought and sold, like rebellion.
Well, how can you sell rebellion?
Well, think about it. You see anti-establishment fashion, slogans, even music, all packaged and marketed. It's bizarre.
So even trying to be different, to go against the grain, it can become another product.
Exactly. Even authenticity gets commodified. It makes you wonder if genuine counterculture is even possible anymore.
So, okay,
Mhm.
we've got this spectacle, this system of images, right? It's driven by capitalism, makes us feel alienated, gives us this fake sense of unity, and turns everything into something you can buy. I think we need to unpack this capitalism connection a bit more.
Absolutely. I mean, Debord, he was definitely writing from like a Marxist perspective.
Meaning,
He saw the spectacle as like a natural outcome of capitalism.
yeah.
It's not some accident, it's baked into the system. Because capitalism is all about turning everything into a commodity, something to be bought and sold, even human experiences and relationships.
So everything becomes a product.
Basically, yeah. And this ties into the idea of consumption as identity.
Okay, what's that?
It's this idea that we define ourselves and others by what we buy.
Instead of by like what we do or what we believe in.
Exactly. It's all about the brands, the products, the media we consume. Like our shopping habits become our personality.
Wow. And this leads to, I think it was called pseudo-choice, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're constantly presented with all these choices.
Like a million different brands of the same thing. Or all these political candidates. But Debord says it's mostly an illusion.
It's like the system stays the same, but they make it look like we have all this freedom to choose. But does it really matter if you have 50 different streaming services, if they're all basically the same?
Right, right. And it's not just stuff we buy. Even our free time, our leisure, it gets sucked into this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Your sources talk about this blurring between work and leisure. It's like even when we're not working, we're still consuming.
So we're never really off the clock.
Pretty much. The entertainment industry is a huge part of this. It needs us to be constantly engaged.
Always consuming, always plugged in.
Exactly. Debord also talked about different forms of the spectacle, like different ways it shows up in the world.
Oh, right, right. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. So first there's the concentrated spectacle. This is what you see in like totalitarian regimes like Nazi Germany or Stalinist Russia.
Okay. So very in your face.
Exactly. It's all about open displays of power. The image of the leader, the all-powerful state, it's central to how they control people.
Like a big dramatic show of force.
Right. Then you have the diffuse spectacle. Debord saw this in consumerist societies like the capitalist democracies we have today.
And how is that different?
Well, here the control is more subtle. It's not so much about one big, scary image. It's about the constant flow of media, advertising, entertainment. It's everywhere, so it's harder to pinpoint.
More sneaky, you mean?
Exactly. It shapes how we think without us even realizing it. And then your sources also mentioned a third form, which is kind of a newer thing, the integrated spectacle.
Integrated.
Yeah, it's like the digital age. It's really amplified everything. We've got the constant surveillance, the algorithms, everything's personalized.
Well, it's like a combination of the other two.
Yeah, in a way. We've got the diffuse stuff, like the endless media and advertising, but also the potential for really intense control, like in the concentrated spectacle. Just think about how targeted the ads you see online are. That's the integrated spectacle at work.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy when you think about it. Like, they know what you're thinking before you do.
Right. So you've got these different forms, but I think the lines are getting blurrier and blurrier.
And it's everywhere. Right. I mean, we see examples of this spectacle all the time. Social media, for one. Your sources mentioned Instagram and TikTok.
Oh, yeah. Perfect examples. It's all about turning your life into a performance.
Presenting this perfect, curated version of yourself for the likes.
Exactly. It's a spectacle we both create and consume.
And what about the news? It's like 247, nonstop. And politics. It feels like it's all about spin and image.
Oh, definitely. It's less about substance and more about creating a certain image.
Yeah.
The sound bites, the slogans, it's all very carefully crafted.
And celebrities, they're like products too, aren't they?
Absolutely. Their brands, their whole lives, real or not, become part of the spectacle.
And then on top of all that, we've got the constant advertising. And the entertainment. It's like there's no escape.
Right. It's designed to fill up every spare moment.
No time to think.
Exactly. So Debord paints this pretty bleak picture, right? This all-encompassing spectacle. Did he offer any way out, any way to escape it?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
He did, but he was also realistic about how difficult it would be.
Okay. So what's the first step?
Your sources talk about recognizing the spectacle. It's about becoming aware of it, like really seeing how media, capitalism, consumerism, how all of that is shaping your perception.
Like waking up and realizing it's all around you.
Right. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then it's about active participation. It's
Yeah.
not enough to just be aware. You have to do something.
So not just sitting back and watching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get involved, engage with the world, with people directly.
Be present, you mean?
Yes. And that leads to reclaiming authentic experiences. This is about prioritizing real human connection, direct experiences.
Instead of the virtual, the simulated.
Put down the phone, have a real conversation. Go out and experience nature without taking a selfie.
That's harder than it sounds these days.
It is, but it's important. And finally, there's radical resistance. This is about actively challenging spectacle, disrupting it.
So not just opting out, but actually fighting back.
Exactly. Questioning the messages, the systems, the whole thing. It's definitely a more radical approach.
Well, it's a lot to think about. So we've really gone deep on this concept of the spectacle, right?
Right.
From Debord's definition, this idea of a social relationship mediated by images to its connection to capitalism. And we've seen how it plays out in different ways throughout history. And of course, the integrated spectacle we live in now.
Yeah, it's all connected. And we talked about how it affects us, right? The alienation, this feeling of false unity, this constant pressure to consume. And then those pathways Debord suggests for resisting it.
Big question is, can we reclaim our agency in this world
Mhm.
that wants us to just sit back and watch?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, it makes you think about your own life, right?
Yeah.
Your daily routines, the media you consume, how you connect with others, how much of that is shaped by the spectacle. And if you wanted to, what's one small thing you could do to, be more present, more engaged? I don't have the answers, but it's definitely worth thinking about.
Food for thought, for sure. Thanks for diving in with us.
Absolutely.
And to everyone listening, keep those questions in mind. The world's a pretty spectacular place, in more ways than one.
No,